And it's a great day. We are live here. I am Dr. Marion Sisterful, many of you know. And today, this conversation is part of our new platform for 2024 called Chats of Intention. Now, I'm trying this out because I recently just had something this just in the last 24 hours that I really want to come and share with you all about. A lot of you know me for the metaphysical and the spiritual and the business side. But as you may or may not know, I'm a cultural anthropologist. I am a degreed cultural anthropologist and Africologist. And I'm just a human being. How about that? I don't really need to qualify myself. I'm a human being who's directly impacted by what I'm about to say to you. So I come across this program called America Reframed on PBS. People have sent it to me a couple of times, and it's talking about the cost of inheritance. And this particular episode is looking at how um, complex issues of reparations are in the United States and how history and the historical injustices and system inequalities. And it's just like it's supposed to be a critical dialogue, and it is a critical dialogue on race conciliation. And I'm saying that to say that they're using personal narratives, community studies, scholarly exposure, all this good stuff that we normally would do on this ideal of reparations. And I really am always perturbed by this because even back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s when I was in college, it was all I felt like everything that has to do with us getting our due. Black Africans, descendants of Black Africans, Black African Americans, whatever you want to call yourself now, right? Black, okay, African American. Those of us that are those descendants of this global attack upon us are always having to defend and debate. Why? Why is it that we are in this perpetual journey of continual battling? What is it that's making us get into these conversations that are disrupting us, that are tempting to be? And I know that I read a book, I'm reading a book, and I heard a conversation, and someone talked about the great agitators, but it's not even so much the great agitators anymore, as much as it is, are they really agitators? In that they are agitating us enough to provoke and bring forth more and reveal more of who we really are and what our assignment is here in this place. Okay. But I also think that those agitators are also time for us to figure out how to have new agitators, new perspectives that when the agitation comes, it is not only provoking us, but it's also sending us into a position of growth. Because this stagnant energy that we keep going, this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth is not progress. So anyway, as I said, it's a conversation on that. So they began to start out telling a story about a woman going into her parents' basement and finding this black book was happened to be a log of all the enslaved Africans that their family had. Another one was this woman. She realizes that there was a black woman buried on their family property because she was endeared by the great grandparents, right? And so she wasn't buried with her family, and they found the descendants, and they're going to try to turn over the land that they initially said they were going to turn over, right? So that was a positive. But then we get into this conversation about Georgetown and how Georgetown University had one day had a some debt, and because Georgetown, like many businesses of that time, many universities at that time that were on the Eastern Seaboard had connections to plantations, right? They were owned by plantations, or the philanthropy came from people who had plantations. Plantations are where they worked the captured, enslaved Black Africans by force without any reprieve or any opportunity of release. Hmm? So with that, so with that, we come back to this conversation. Georgetown had some debt they were unable to meet by other means. And so, through the use of their plantation with an S, they were able to sell 200, listen to me, 272 enslaved Africans from, hey, and send them down to Louisiana to work. 272 adults. Are y'all with me? Now, let's just say the average cost, right? To sell 272 to tell you how much that debt was, and knowing prices went anywhere from 500 to $2,000, sometimes $3,000 for an enslaved African in that system. So there became this research, this work group, this independent work group come up, and Georgetown doesn't include anybody to be a part of that may have been affected and all this stuff. But long story short, they come out with this study, and this study says, yes, you had plantations, and Georgetown is was funded through the labor of enslaved Africans. And so now these families have become around and they find out about it and they start talking, and all of a sudden we get to this process and Georgetown makes this apology. Okay. Then we go back and we go back and then we get the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was very much involved in that. All Christians, except for two that I can recall off the top of my head, were greatly involved in the enslavement of Black Africans throughout the diaspora, throughout the world, not just here in America, but everywhere, right? If you are a Christian, Catholicism is Christianity. So stop trying to separate yourself. Okay. So it also we want to talk about this, this also this thing, right? Of the Catholic Church now needed to apologize. So the Catholic Church, they convinced this guy, and the line they use in the story is that the priest says, they told me God wasn't in the works or in existence or wasn't acknowledged during that time frame of the selling. But what is God speaking to you now to do? And so he gets up and he does this. They do this program and they ask for forgiveness and they want to tell the story. And it was at that moment that I became kind of enraged. I became kind of like flabbergasted. How dare you offer me an apology? I mean, this goes back to Bill Clinton making an apology. What did it really do? What did it really solve? How did the number of incidents increase? Sure, we tear down statues. Okay, but how does that enhance us? Because it does not, you cannot alter another person's mind with legislation. That's been proven. So this conversation continues to talk about reparations. And let me just tell y'all, for those of you that think this is a new thing, because you've been in this self-imposed and inherited identity that you are only in this thing. Oh, I'm really getting dark, aren't I? I'm really getting dark. Let me see. I'm gonna have to find a light. I'm gonna keep talking, right? I'm gonna keep talking because I want us to be very clear on what I'm saying. Yeah, I want us to be very clear on what I'm bringing to the table. So give me one moment. Let me try to adjust some lights. I'm actually packing up everything, but I wanted to do this broadcast. Let's see, can I get some more light in this room? I don't know. You never know, right? You never know. It got a little brighter. Okay. So I'm saying this, and I left off by talking about they did these apologies. And he's like, the priest is like, I'm so sorry. That was a clip. But my question begins again. My question becomes, at what point? At what point do we surrender? At what point do we say enough is enough? At what point do we give into the conversations that need to be had for reparations? And again, reparations are not new. Just because you never heard of it doesn't mean that Black African people have not always in this country requested reparations. We can take it back to the 1800s. I believe her name was House, and they even brought her up in the documentary. They even brought her up in the documentary. And she got 1 year in prison because they said, and the premise is that Negroes have no place in the law. The law doesn't apply to Negroes, Negroes doesn't. And that's the oxymoron. I'll come back to that. Put a pin in that. So they basically said, you committed fraud because you were collecting money to come and sue or pursue rights in the court of law, knowing that Negroes, that was a term, right? That Negroes could not do that, did not have any rights, basically. Now, this is post enslavement. This is Jim Crow segregation. Remember the Dred Scott issue? There's many, many more. So reparations are not new, y'all. There were Black African people free and runaway that tried to sue to get their reparations back. Now, there are people who were free that were captured and then enslaved, and their family tried to sue and say that this is un-American. They said the law doesn't apply to you. So this isn't this idea of reparations. I mean, isn't that what we do in the courts now? I mean, people, that's what you can sue. If I kill your cow, in the books it said if you kill my cow, you owe me for my cow. That was a law. But if you kill my Black African slave, it's okay. Unless it was my high quality. But me, I can beat my own property. I can kill my own property and it's okay. But if you come on my plantation and you do it, or if you take my property, I can sue you. You owe me compensation. But we, the descendants of those persons who were held against their wills, those persons that were incapable of being able to pursue justice for themselves. Hmm? It's not possible. So anyway, they went on. So I said, your apologies are not accepted. What does it really do to say I'm sorry or I'll forgive us or we didn't mean to? It wasn't me that did it, but I apologize for your. What does remorse really do for the person who was injured, the person that was accosted? What does it really do? And I think that's where we need to get to into that conversation. What does it really do to have an apology? In my opinion, it does nothing, right? People talk about relatives, and I've had relatives that got caught up in the 70s and 80s on drugs. And I even had a neighbor who used to do heroin where she and her husband would shoot up their arms. And when you saw their arms, you saw the tracks. Them telling their children they were sorry, apologizing to us as neighbors, apologizing to people, whatever they did, does not negate the fact that they used drugs, that there was harm inflicted to their arm. Their arm, yes, it healed over, it scarred over, but the tracks are still there. The scarring is still there. The scarring still remains on us. To emphasize this fact is that there was so much put into place. Because for me, I've never been one that said, let's try to get compensation for enslavement. I said, no, we'll give them that. But what I want to get reparations for, the conversation I want to have, I don't need your apology. I need repair, restoration, and regress. Absolutely, positively, I do. And what that looks like is that once it became law that slavery was no longer an institution. They couldn't even get that right because there were still, if you were in the Union and you had enslaved Africans, you were still allowed to maintain that lifestyle because you were in the Union. You didn't succeed. Another small little tidbit people don't tell. So what do we do? Where do we go? How do we partake, embrace, create the space? You have to have the real discussion and you have to take accountability. The apology alone does nothing. Oh, right. So, and then that's even part of the need for the reparations because for whatever reason we have been conditioned by the social embedded pseudo Christian judo Christian religions that are influencing this society. We are taught that you should always accept an apology and that sorry is a good thing. That's a start. So we know that that's not enough because people have been apologizing for over 100 years now. 100 plus years, 150 years to be exact. So then what goes on? We're heading toward almost 200 years and we still have this high population of men in prison and women in prison. We still have our children taken away from us with no regard for the conditions that outside of abuse, physical abuse, and even I could probably make a case for that. But outside of physical abuse, if you can't feed your child, is it really you? When we're relegated to less salaries, limited opportunities, low pay and I'm just being honest. This is not an excuse. This is setting up the program. But we don't need apologies anymore. We don't need any more studies to say what is the impact of Jim Crow segregation. Because I'm going to be honest, maybe the impact, the challenges is what happened during Reconstruction forward when they took, hey, when they took men and women, black men and women in in Natchez, Mississippi, and built a wall around them and let them die. When they said the executive order, military order said 40 acres and a mule, and the Constitution itself says that anyone who does treason loses all rights. That's why when people go to prison, they lose their right to vote. But when you do treason, you have no rights. But what happened? Abraham Lincoln's get assassinated. And what did they do? They reversed everything. Hmm? Took away the land from the Sea Islands, South Carolina, Georgia area, took it all away. Took it all away and returned, gave the white plantation owners or planters, whatever you want to call them, that had just done treason, fought, killed, murdered people in a war, succeeded from the Union, refused to adhere. Now they're back in the Union. And not only are they back, they got $20,000 equivalent. Yeah. So you tell me, because I'm curious. That's why we need reparations. Reparations that says that you will have elected officials that were murdered in Capitol buildings doing reconstructions, houses burnt down. Children snatched from their parents and made to go back into forms of servitude until they were 18 or 21. Yeah, y'all thought slavery. No, it didn't. You had very little control. This is the I'm going to stop here because I think that I don't want to get too chaotic with it. I don't want to get too emotional with it because it is emotional because it is a part of my life. It impacts me, right? I'm a descendant of those people that went through that. And I look at my parents and I go, wow. I look at my grandparents and I went, whoa, right? I didn't have the honor to meet my great grandparents. But this is I don't need an apology. Stop asking for an apology. What are we getting when we're asking for an apology? What is it that is that supposed to be? Did it change anything? Oh, he showed remorse. She showed remorse. They said they're sorry. Okay, they said they're sorry, and what? So now Georgetown should open up itself. If Georgetown really is sorry, Georgetown should make it to where uh, any descendant of those 272 or any Black African child that is in need should be able to come to that university and not, as long as they qualify to be there, let them be there for free. So you I know what y'all was gonna say. Oh no, they can't go. That they're trying to reverse diversity, diversity, inclusion. Why? Why are they doing that? Because they want to again control the narratives. A lot of these Catholic schools and Lutheran schools, they didn't do that because they wanted to educate us. They did that because they were making sure that their members' children and felt safe. So they created the schools for them to avoid the public school integration. See, y'all don't even know your history. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I don't need an apology. I don't need an apology. I don't need no apology. I need there to be some proactive amends, repairs in progress. How many Black Africans in America lost their land because they little by little by little by little took little pieces of their land or just outright took their land or just ran them away and they left it for safety. How many? So this conversation that I'm having with y'all is because I really was flabbergasted. I'm tired of seeing people apologize. Our men are murdered, our children are murdered, our women are murdered, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're sorry for your loss. And on behalf of the city, on behalf of the state, on behalf of the country, we're sorry. On behalf of the church, we're sorry." But how does that equate to the devastation and the loss? I mean, that was some psychopathic. Those are psychopaths that made those decisions during that time period. That performed those actions. And don't act like y'all don't know. The other groups have been able to get compensation. Look what they did after World War II. When they put the Japanese, they put the Italians, the Germans, Americans, they put them in concentration camps. And then they gave them some compensation. There was a point in time when things could have been. I don't need another apology, and I don't need them to keep putting in front of me every time they do a documentary about our experience, keep replaying the murders of my brothers and sisters by genetic and heritage connection. I don't need to be keep being replayed to me because you're re-injuring me now. And then some people that are still the psychopath, the same line of psychopaths, are now getting off on that. So no, when I saw that and I saw that the church, the Catholic Church giving an apology, Georgetown giving an apology, presidents give, that means nothing to me because it does not negate the damage. As I said previously, this conversation from Americans reframe. I think it's great to talk about the cost of inheritance because there is a cost of inheritance. Sometimes the cost is not visible. The cost is hidden. I wanted to play my audio that I made when I first watched the show and I first heard that, and it again, it flabbergasted me. It flabbergasted me. And a lot of people will see this video and they're gonna go, "Wow, I don't know what to do with that information." Do whatever it has to do because for me, I had to get the energy out. Watching that program that was very well done, I thought it was very well done. I don't have any complaints about the quality of it whatsoever, but I just feel like there's a part when we have to stop letting people keep putting our pain back in front of us and or delaying and dictating how we cope with that pain or that experience. I am degreed, terminal degree. Even without my degree, I've always been a person who studied history and learned about my culture, my people, because that's how I was raised up. Very proud. So understanding that this idea, reparations, has not it's not new. And while we appreciate people trying to make an effort, well, it wasn't me. I'm sorry. Da 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 da. Yeah, there should. Okay, so now at this point, there are some things that can be done. I feel that people that are aware that their family that enslaved Africans, if your family enslaved Africans, or if you have this huge amount of land and you know that there was a document somewhere and they're showing you this document that shows that they once owned this land and now you own it, and it's around the time they had to flee, it's around the time that they were forced off their land. Can you imagine? How do you love somebody, adore somebody, but yet you keep them trapped and enslaved? That's insane, right? That's insanity. And that's why I said about the psychopathic nature. That's where the point needs to be. No, I don't need an apology. I don't need an apology. I need you to make an amends. I need you to make an action. I need you to talk to your people for your people to figure out how to fix what they've done for hundreds of years. It makes no sense. This is where we're getting to this today. This is where we're getting to today. This is why we're here today. A lot of us have no clue. We have no understanding. We have no understanding. We have very little awareness. And this is why you get these people speaking up because that same psychopathic mentality and identity and arrogance that caused all of the hoopla this has us seeking this is now being embedded in a new generation. And they're too lazy to research or challenge their folks. So they just go with the plan. And some of our children are being convinced to, oh, let's live it in the past. It doesn't matter. But no apology is needed because I'm not going to accept it. And more of us need to stop accepting apologies for things that can be repaired and be restored. While you're apologizing to me, have you ever considered the sincerity of that apology? What was the intention of that apology? Even in court, when there's a victim, they'll say to you, do you feel comfortable being in the courtroom? Do you feel comfortable speaking? Or we'll clear the courtroom so the victim can speak. We'll clear the courtroom so the witness can speak. But we've been made to put everything out. This conversation is not new. Reparations are not new. And no, it should not, again, I repeat, it should not happen with the institution of slavery. Let's start in Reconstruction. Let's start with the people. Let's start with the fact that they created laws and they blocked us in. Even the so-called good efforts they made were rescinded. And as a result of that, we remain still captured in cities, in towns, still captured in our fullness of our experience and expression. That's what you tackling. How they used to snatch men and children, women, men, and children, and put them into enslavement situations because they weren't viable citizens. They weren't working, or that the parents could not provide shelter and quality shelter and food according to theirs. But when they had them in enslavement, they gave them what? Did they give them the same quality bed sheets that they had? Did they give them the same quality of protection that they had in their home? Did they have all the amenities? Did they get the same level and quality of food? Did they get the same level of clothing to monitor themselves, or were they piecemealing? It's been documented because people have told the story that lived that life. It's documented. Thousands and thousands of archives, thousands and thousands of books and observations. So we ask ourselves today, I don't need an apology. Do you need an apology? That doesn't bring back my loved one. It doesn't bring back your loved one. It doesn't change the history at all. If you erase the textbooks, it doesn't stop the fact that it existed because I'm still here. Where did we begin I mean, seriously, I was enraged. What I recorded was like 20 minutes of me just making the quick correlations just off top of my head. The levels of imprisonment, the chain gangs, all of that was created for those people that they were angry. The psychopaths were angry that they could no longer get free labor and they couldn't control it. So they created laws that limited it. Their so-called now new freedom. You got freedom, but no liberties. You got freedom, but no rights. I told you, Mrs. House. Oh my gosh, I gotta find her name. My mind is coming back into my academia mode now. This is what I taught. There's a woman in 18, I want to say like 70s, 73, something like that, doing Reconstruction. She started getting people to give her money because she was saying, you guys are this world, this government needs to be giving us some money, needs to be giving us some land and some money. Pull it back. They snatched our land from us. They're preventing us from having our own piece of land. We're forced to go back into servitude. And let's get some money and let's go to the government and let's convince them. They put her in jail for a year. I think it was Tennessee. They put her in jail for a year. And what they put her in jail for is they said that she was a fraud. She was creating fraud because she was taking money knowing that Negroes had no rights to sue in court. So this ain't new. So everyone knows that there wasn't something right. So even Marcus Garvey, let's go to Marcus Garvey. Let's go to the Nation of Islam. Let's go to the Move movement. This is not new. This is not new. This is not something they have to legislate. This is not something they need to research. I think there is enough adequate, sufficient research and documentation to show that there was an accosting that has occurred. So I don't need an apology. I don't need your sympathy. We don't. That's all I'm saying. Watch the film. It's a nice film, very intuitive. And I'm saying this again because I haven't here. I watched it because it was given to me because people know that we I have inherited land. I have inherited land. I purchased land that's my own and I built on it. And so the person was like, "Hey, you would like this." They talking about inherit. I said, "Yeah, there is a cost." I'm thinking it's gonna talk about, the struggles that we have to maintain the land and da 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 da. But it started talking. It's a real discussion. It's a real discussion about the systemic injustices and a critical dialogue, really. And it opens up historically and with documentation the fact that Georgetown, the churches, right? Like I said, the Catholic Church is Christianity, just so y'all know that. Some people don't think that a Catholic is a Christian. They are. Okay, they are a Christian. So they were just saying how Georgetown, had sold these 272 enslaved Africans and sent them down to Louisiana to pay off a debt. So, like I said, reparations could come in the moon from. I don't need an apology, Georgetown. We don't need to sit on your seats, Georgetown. How about hire some qualified Black African American professors? How about hire some? How about create a program that allows qualified uh, Black African American students to be able to go there for free, especially those that are descendants of that 272, which you now have legitimate documentation of the exact name and ages. Y'all kept when they arrived, they sent you back and said we are in receipt of. And now all this modern technology is allowing people to go back and trace things that they would never be able to do because there are no formal records. But DNA don't lie. Hmm? I know it's dark in here, y'all. I apologize. I was packing up and I didn't put my I packed up my things because we're about to move around. Thank you for being here. Those of you that are watching, yeah, seriously. But I wanted to get that out. I don't want to hear, and I don't, and I'm tired of them parading around the videos over and over again of the murder, the actual murders of the men and women living their lives, just trying to behave. But then somebody comes along and they say, "Oh, well, if he would have did this, if she would have did that." What are you talking about? I live in a predominantly white area all my life. I live in a predominantly white state and area again right now. You're welcome. And I can tell you, some people are just that way because they're just that way. Oh, they can talk back and say, "What are you doing?" But if my son or myself say, "What are you doing?" Now we're a problem. It's because subconsciously they have a belief about it. That's why I said those people they were psychopaths. If you look at the history of the people who came, you know why I'm saying that. This is historically documented. When there was a shortage on labor, there was a certain population of people that were allowed to come and work in exchange for being in the insane asylum in the prison. Yes, Dr. Marion is talking. So it's really important for us to begin to think about that. What is an apology doing, and why is there really a long drawn out process, and why do so many reports have to be done, and why do so many studies have to be created? How come we have to keep hearing the same statistics over and over again? And if there's no change, listen, as a researcher, if they tell you, if you are doing research and your research keeps producing the same results, try a different method, a different response. When do we get a different response other than "I'm sorry, we apologize"? Now they're on this move to rescind diversity and inclusion, affirmative action, diversity and inclusion. There's no need for it. That's because they want to make sure, just like I told y'all about them churches and all those nice little schools we went to, religious schools people went to. They were not designed for you, honey. The reason why you got in the 70s and the 80s is because of white flight. So then they took us. Well, I know your history. But this world doesn't want us to know our history because when we know our history, we begin to think differently. You begin to connect dots like I did for 20 minutes. Like the fact that the child services division was is an extension of what they used to do to those newly freed black Africans when they would take their children and have them come work until they were 21 under the custody of good regard. And then most parents who didn't want to separate themselves from their children, what did they do? They went right back to what options did you have? Remember, you had no representation in the court. You had no rights. Some states did, yes. Some states did give you an opportunity to sue to get compensation back, but never against a white person. Very rare was that to happen. Do your research. That's why it's important that we have these type of conversations. This is the multiplicity of our existence. You can't walk around love and light. Oh, the Lord, all of that. I'm a good person. I'm a calm person, but you dying inside, and there's a constant attack to negate your existence, to force you into a level of assimilation where you're no more. Oh, that's not appropriate, but this is appropriate. I don't need no more apologies. I don't need no more apologies. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. That's all I want to say. Check it out, Reframing America. The cost of inheritance. It's some good stuff. Some good solutions came out of there. But like I said, the part that I wanted that really when I hung up, I was like, why everybody kept apologizing? If your family enslaved people, they enslaved people. That was the law. Now, what they did after they were no longer legally allowed to do that is where you need to have a come to Jesus moment for yourself and heal. And then begin to do things to make an amends, to build bridges, to increase harmony. Reframe your mind, your way of thinking, your belief system so that you can really see that we're all really connected. We all still need the same things. Then you forgive yourself, you forgive your ancestors for their psychopathic, diabolical, oh, let me stop, things that occurred. And then you start looking at the current people who are in political offices and in positions of power in the business community, in the medical community, in politics. And you start asking and financing, you start saying, now, how do I influence these people so they understand that what they're keeping in place is negating a quality of life for millions of people? And I don't want to hear, because here's a good thing. Somebody that's very wealthy told me, very wealthy. I'm like, dang, they're Oprah Winfrey wealthy. Hint, hint. That it doesn't matter because you don't control your money anyway. So even if I want to take $2 billion every month and give it away for this particular thing, my money is so locked up in control. I can hardly do that. That's why I went independent. That's why I left that scene. So when I get my money, I do what I want to do with my money. Because money is not the issue, the answer to repair the damage that has been done for all these years. Money is not the answer. Access alone is not the answer. It is a dismantling of a system. They talk about what was that? They didn't want the children to march. They didn't want Black Lives Matters to march. But then that same time, they had a insurrection on Capitol Hill, ransacked it, and people are supporting it. But you don't want people to talk about lives, their lives matter because it's got to be about you. Again, psychopathic behavior, narcissist behavior, manipulative behavior, gaslighting behavior. Seriously, we have to come to a better place. I really love and appreciate the connections that I have because they let me talk freely. I let them talk freely, and then I correct what needs to be corrected. They correct me, and we get to that point. That's how it's supposed to be. You can't change the past, but you can definitely affect what's happening right here in the present so that in the future you can have more of what you desire. Stop thinking that I sorry makes it better. I didn't know makes it better. It doesn't. It doesn't. If you really want things to be better, if you really want things to be more conducive for all, if you really want people to not have to say Black Lives Matter, and there are everybody lives matter, but when my life is in danger, damn it, my life, if it seems like you trying to take my life matter more than anybody else's life right now, because I seem to be the only one going down. So I'm a holler. But they say a hit dog gonna holler. So we had to holler. And we've been hollering for how many years? This is 2024 from 1865, really to present. We still hollering about the same thing. Oh, we got millionaires and billionaires. Even the basketball players. I know I had a husband as an athlete. I got a son that's an athlete. I know what those contracts say. I know how they try to squeeze you out. Some of y'all got jobs. You are constrained in your position because you're bound by I won't have any money. I better do what they say do. And it negates all of your personhood. And you go and be stressed out and you get sick and you go in the hospital and they find somebody to replace you. Honor and embrace more of you. Tell tell the truth. Stop apologizing. Do something about it. When I worked in domestic violence shelters, we told people, okay, well, he said he was sorry. It won't happen no more. Okay, then you go back and what happens? He did it again, right? But I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's no connection. There's no consequence. There's no new experience. Anyway, have a great day, y'all. I just got this all out. So now you know, right? Now you hear where I'm at. If you want the full video, I don't know if they put it, I don't know where it's going. It's a video somewhere. I started talking a long time ago, but I see she done put up two more groups or two more locations. So if you came in and I was kind of mid sentence, I know for sure I started out, I think on YouTube. I think on YouTube. All right. Blessings and peace to you, elevation to you, wisdom to you, awareness to you, more wholeness to you, more revelation. We're not isolated, y'all. We're not isolated. Yeah, but I'm tired of being re-injured and I'm tired of getting I'm sorry's for the things that we know are gonna harm. If you know it's gonna harm me, why do you keep allowing it to be? If you don't agree with that court decision, then why are you keep supporting the people and the ideas and the concepts that allow that person to keep creating scenarios that cause the court to have to make that decision? Like I said, if you can say shut up, I can say shut up. And we should both get the same consequence. But it doesn't happen that way because the mind doesn't work that way. The mind changes through relearning, and nobody wants to address that. A heroin addict still has the tracks in their arms. No matter how many times they say they sorry, give their life to God, and go make amends. Whatever, they still got the tracks, but they put on shirts to cover it up. The body will heal the scarring, the hole, but it's gonna have a track. Y'all want us to forget that we got a track. Y'all made tracks on us. Y'all made tracks to Black African American people and global Black African people across the globe. You all made a track. When y'all had that conference and y'all began to colonize and y'all began to enslave, you started grooving a track. Then when we said you can't have a track no more, now you just disregard us and now you just relegate some new roles and you kept digging in the same track. You started a new track, I should say. It's devastating. I do want to say this about the film. At the end, one of the ladies whose family she realized that they had given her great grandfather had given some land to one of the enslaved persons, and it was never stamped. So they were made to leave the land, and the Black family became homeless. They were told that wasn't their land. So she went back and she helped them out. And as a family descendant of her great grandfather, she was able to write a title and turn that land back over to them. It was like 10 acres. Now y'all might say 10 acres ain't a lot, but 10 acres is a lot. I know because I got it, right? It's a lot of land. It's a lot. When you ain't got to get put, and it's down south. It's down south where I, I'm just saying, just between me and you, property taxes might be $100 a year. So you imagine you got 10 acres. 10 acres. If you gave everybody a half an acre, which is about what the average house is in a city, a half an acre, a quarter of an acre. How many houses could you build? That could be a whole family of a community. They can turn that into whatever they want to. They can build a business on that land. We have to start thinking about the cost. That's why reparations are a requirement. We've been sitting next to y'all. We've been studying with y'all. We've been walking with y'all. We've been eating with y'all. We've been talking with y'all. Some people even been in love with y'all. And we still got this going on. When I was talking the other day with my sister girl, my sister, right? She happens to identify as a white person. And I was talking to her. She's like, "Yeah, I get so damn mad." And girl, I just know it because it's you know what it is? You know what it is? My people probably were passing. My family probably was passing, and that's probably why I get so upset about it. And I said, "Who knows?" But at the end of the day, I love and appreciate you for being honest and sharing and giving us a safe space to be sisters, just like any other body that I love. It is what it is. But we got to do something different, y'all. This 2024, the energy of this year is just phenomenal. It is about exchanges, growth, expansion. Why not expand on that? Why about instead of dismissing and saying somebody's whining or that people just aren't trying, why don't you really look and see? Look and see. How do you exclude somebody? Change the rules every chance you get. Deny or give access, but only so much access. Put them in stressful situations and expect them to perform at the highest level of possible when they're in an environment where people are staring, talking crazy, challenging them, saying little slick things, little sly remarks, and then they still outperform, and then you say something wrong. You still don't want to acknowledge them. Another movie I just watched was a great example of that. It's called Black Cake. Yeah, the son story. Getting passed over time and time again for promotions. But you're doing the majority of the work, you've done the best research, but now he feels that somebody else would be more representative in this program, even though you started the program. It happens all the time. That's why they talking about reparations. That's why they talking about all the land deeds that were stolen and amended without people's knowledge. That's why. The fact that Black African American women, when they go into a hospital, are often placated because they're saying they're over exaggerating the pain. Because in the minds, I went to med school, in the mind, subconsciously, they say stuff like, we have high pain thresholds. Where does that come from? From all that experimentation they did. Sometimes when you get tired of screaming because you know that psychopath is getting off. So you stop or you hide your pain because some label we put upon you or some punishment we put upon you. It's a retraining that has to occur. It's an expansion that has to develop and be allowed to be. The embodiment of who we really are has everything to do with us taking a stance as a human nation, as beings on this in this human form, recognizing that we are beings and we all have the same needs and desires and wants. And I shouldn't have to minimize myself to give you to make you feel good, and you shouldn't have to minimize yourself. And we don't need, man, it's crazy. Let me shut up. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Talk to y'all soon. Peace and blessings. Thanks for listening. Take care.